The content presented in this video is based on publicly available reports, resurfaced interviews, opinion commentary, and ongoing legal narratives. All individuals mentioned are considered innocent until proven guilty. This video does not assert guilt or confirm unverified claims. Its purpose is to inform, provoke thought, and encourage public awareness around topics of celebrity power, influence, and alleged misconduct. Viewer discretion is advised. Diddy Combs is no stranger to pressure. For decades, he's danced with it, turning crisis into spectacle, headlines into control. But the latest developments in his legal saga feel different, not because of what he said, but because of who isn't speaking anymore. And in a time that seems to mark the beginning of an end for him, the last thing he wants to lose is his legal standing. Just 3 months before his federal trial is set to begin, Diddy Combs has lost one of his most powerful legal voices, and no one, not even his own team, is explaining why. One of Diddy's top attorneys, known for decades of work in the nation's highest-stakes death penalty cases, formally stepped down, and his reason is being protected by attorney-client privilege. The wording was precise, wrote that under no circumstances could he continue defending Diddy, but beyond that he said nothing, no details, no scandal, just silence. And that silence has people talking. Because this isn't just any lawyer, has tried more than 45 federal death penalty cases. He's been inside some of the country's most complex trials, from embassy bombings to terror plots, and rarely walks away from a fight. So why now? This isn't a small shake-up. This is a fracture in the core of Diddy's defense, coming at the worst possible time. Legal analysts say exit won't delay the trial. Diddy still has 5 lawyers on record, including appellate heavyweight Alexander. But what worries observers isn't the number of attorneys, it's what's exit could mean. A private disagreement? A conflict of interest? A deeper divide inside the defense team that no one wants to say out loud? And with the stakes this high, facing up to life in prison, one lawyer stepping away could signal much more than a scheduling conflict. So what is walking away from? And what might he know that we do? What we do know is that Diddy's inner circle has started to shift. Not just in courtrooms, but in boardrooms, press meetings, and private conversations where once loyal figures are now choosing distance. In past cases, Diddy has been known to lash out behind closed doors. Former employees, collaborators, even journalists have described his temper as sharp, his need for control as unrelenting. So when someone walks away quietly during a moment like this, people are starting to ask, was that silence negotiated or earned? It's not the first time a celebrity has faced a fracture in their legal armor. But what makes this moment so explosive is the scale of what's at stake. Dozens of civil suits, active federal probes, the resurfacing of old footage, new accusations, and the ever-present possibility that someone else might come forward tomorrow. In that environment, every move matters, and every retreat, no matter how quiet, feels like a message. Let's not forget Diddy's defense has built itself on public perception. Controlled narratives, tactical interviews, calculated appearances. So when a top-tier legal representative suddenly vanishes from the picture, it's not just an HR update. It's a shift in strategy, or maybe a loss of faith. Still, Diddy's camp remains tight-lipped. No formal comments, no damage control, and that in itself feels like a statement. Because for a man who built an empire on image, the unraveling doesn't have to be televised, it only has to be noticed. So what really happened behind those closed doors? Why would a trusted lawyer step away now, just as the temperature rises? And if Diddy is losing the people paid to defend him, what does that say about what's still hidden? Combs didn't get to where he is by moving alone. For decades, his empire, Bad Boy, Revolt, and beyond was built on relationships. And when those relationships were tested, especially in court, Diddy always had the kind of legal power that only the elite can afford. But today, that image is wobbling. Over the years, Diddy's legal team has included some of the sharpest names in entertainment law. At one point, he worked closely with the late, one of the most respected attorneys in Hollywood, who represented everyone from Michael Jackson to Justin. After his passing in 2021, other high-profile defense specialists took over, many with decades of experience in civil litigation and crisis PR. But now, in the midst of mounting civil lawsuits, federal investigations, and explosive media coverage, one of those attorneys is said to have quietly stepped away. No official statement, no public explanation, just gone, And it's that absence at this exact moment that's raising eyebrows inside legal circles. In the world of high-stakes litigation, especially when celebrities are involved, defense teams are curated like luxury brands. Every lawyer has a purpose. Some handle courtroom filings, others manage media narratives. But when a senior figure leaves mid-crisis, it often signals something deeper. It's not always about guilt or innocence. Sometimes it's about the fight becoming unmanageable. One former prosecutor, now working in legal analysis for major networks, commented anonymously, "When you've got a client facing overlapping lawsuits, public backlash, and federal attention, the stress doesn't just weigh on the accused. It burdens the whole legal operation. Sometimes lawyers walk to protect their own careers or their mental health." There's also precedent. In 2017, during Diddy's entanglement in a wrongful termination lawsuit from a former chef, there were reports of behind-the-scenes frustration in his legal team. That case was eventually settled quietly. But the playbook seems to be repeating, only this time, the stakes are bigger and the spotlight harsher. The recent civil lawsuit, particularly the explosive one filed by Cassie Ventura in late 2023, were just the beginning. Since then, more accusers have come forward, and the Department of Homeland Security, along with other federal bodies, is reportedly sifting through a mountain of electronic evidence. Texts, videos, photos, contracts, travel records. In this climate, lawyers are not just defending a celebrity, they're defending a collapsing infrastructure. Every new allegation stretches the timeline, every new lawsuit shifts the defense narrative. And that chaos is hard to manage when your client is also a global brand. What's more revealing is who hasn't been seen. As these cases mount, Diddy hasn't had a prominent courtroom advocate publicly defending him. No press conferences, no strong televised rebuttals, just silence. Even his social media accounts, once platforms for image control, have gone dark. That kind of silence often means one thing: the strategy is shifting from public defense to private damage control. And perhaps that's the most telling part of all. Because when an attorney steps down in a high-profile case like this, it doesn't always come with a press release. Sometimes it comes with a message no one wants to say out loud. This case is getting too big, too messy, too dangerous. So the question becomes, who's left to defend Diddy when the ones paid to do so begin stepping back? For years, Diddy was the architect of his own myth, commanding studios, red carpets, and boardrooms with a confidence that bordered on invincibility. But behind the calculated media image, a different pattern was forming. One that speaks not through headlines, but through the people who quietly stepped away and those who dared to speak. The public first caught glimpses of this temperament years ago. In 2012, Diddy made headlines after being arrested for allegedly assaulting a UCLA football coach with a kettlebell over his son's playing time. The charges were later dropped, but the incident resurfaced during discussions around his volatility and tendency to explode when challenged. In 2015, the rap mogul's ex-bodyguard, Gene Deal, began publicly opening up about what he witnessed during the bad boy era. In interviews, Gene hinted at Diddy's controlling nature, unpredictable moods, and how many around him operated from a place of fear rather than loyalty. "You couldn't tell him no. You had to agree or you were out," Deal once said. That same dynamic extended beyond security and into his personal relationships. Cassie Ventura's 2023 lawsuit outlined not just physical and emotional mistreatment, but also an environment of intimidation and manipulation. While the allegations and the case was settled within 24 hours, the details left many wondering how many people around him endured similar patterns without ever saying a word. But it's not just former employees and ex-partners raising concern. Even within the music industry, whispers of Diddy's dominance turning toxic have surfaced repeatedly. In a resurfaced 2009 backstage video from the MTV VMAs, rapper J. Cole was seen visibly uncomfortable during a confrontation with Diddy, later admitting they nearly came to blows over a disagreement related to. That footage, though short, painted a picture of a man who didn't back down easily and often escalated tensions rather than de-escalating them. Then there's the way Diddy handles press. Over the years, he's walked out of interviews, cut off reporters mid-question, and publicly scolded journalists who veered off script. One infamous moment occurred in 2013 on The Breakfast Club when a question about his relationship with triggered an outburst. Rather than address it calmly, Diddy snapped, changed the topic, and warned the hosts not to get messy. All of this builds a credible backdrop to what insiders are saying now, that the pressure of multiple lawsuits and a federal investigation isn't just exposing legal vulnerabilities, but personal ones. A man who once held courtrooms and conference rooms in the palm of his hand is reportedly lashing out under pressure. Not physically, but verbally. Not publicly, but behind closed doors where frustration turns into confrontation and control begins to slip. Legal experts say this behavior isn't uncommon. When powerful individuals are cornered, their behavior often mirrors their public power struggles, intimidation, finger-pointing, and pushing allies away rather than pulling them close. The meltdown doesn't always happen in court, said one crisis manager who's handled celebrity implosions. It usually happens in a room no one sees, right before the headlines do. And with reports of attorneys distancing themselves from Diddy, it's hard not to see the thread. Because when someone at the center of multiple legal storms begins losing their team, not because they're broke, but because they're difficult, that becomes part of the case too. As Diddy Combs prepares for trial, his legal team is signaling one central theme. Everything that happened, however provocative, however disturbing, was consensual. It's a strategy that's emerging in court filings, defense interviews, and legal commentary. Diddy's attorneys aren't arguing that the alleged encounters didn't happen. They're arguing those encounters weren't crimes. Specifically, they're attacking count 3 of the federal indictment, transportation to engage in prostitution, by going after the law behind it, the Act. The Act, first passed in 1910, was originally called the White Slave Traffic Act. It criminalized transporting individuals across state lines for immoral purposes. Over time, it's been used in a variety of high-profile prosecutions, but its historical roots have long raised questions about how it's applied and who it's used against. Diddy's lawyers argue that count 3 should be thrown out, claiming the law is selectively enforced and racially biased. In a recent motion to dismiss, they wrote that no white person has been prosecuted under remotely similar circumstances. They argue that Diddy is being targeted not for trafficking, but for being a powerful black man with a controversial lifestyle. It's a bold argument and a risky one. Former federal prosecutors say selective prosecution motions are difficult to win. As one legal analyst put it, it's like being pulled over for speeding and saying, "But other people were speeding too." Unless you can prove the government targeted you for a constitutionally protected reason, like race, it's almost impossible to get a charge thrown out. Still, Diddy's defense appears committed to this track. They claim what the government calls transportation to engage in prostitution was, in fact, Diddy arranging for male escorts to join consensual encounters with his girlfriends. The implication: what happened behind closed doors was personal, legal, if unsavory, and the government is mislabeling it as criminal. The prosecution, however, sees it differently. According to their case, this wasn't a matter of preference, it was about power. They allege Diddy used force, fraud, and coercion to manipulate individuals into intimate acts that were not consensual, then recorded them for his own use. It's a legal distinction that makes all the difference. If prosecutors can prove coercion, the entire defense narrative collapses. And that's the tightrope Diddy's attorneys are now walking. Because this isn't a classic, he said, she said, trial. The case reportedly includes digital records, travel documentation, and most importantly, video evidence. If those materials support the prosecution's claims, arguing consent becomes exponentially harder. But for now, the defense seems locked into its position. Diddy did not traffic anyone, he did not coerce anyone, and what happened in those secret, dirty encounters, as they've been described, was entirely within his rights to arrange. Whether that argument holds up in court or falls apart under cross-examination will soon be tested in front of a jury. And with the trial just weeks away, the defense's framing of this case is no longer theoretical. It's the foundation they're standing on. Legal analysts point out that attorneys aren't just advocates, they're risk assessors. When the optics around a case grow too volatile and the facts too difficult to defend without damaging one's own credibility, lawyers make strategic exits, not with statements but with silence. And this silence is echoing louder than ever in Diddy's world. Take his longtime friendship with industry executive. Before his passing, was one of the few who could publicly check Diddy's ego or offer counsel with weight. Since his death, few have visibly stepped into that trusted advisor role. What's left now are transactional relationships, managers, staff, assistants, many of whom operate under pressure, not power. A former business partner, speaking anonymously to a trade outlet earlier this year, said it plainly. Diddy runs his empire like a kingdom, but kingdoms fall faster when people are afraid to speak truth to power. Even Revolt, his flagship media company, issued a vague public statement after Cassie's lawsuit, distancing itself from Diddy's personal legal issues. Revolt has no involvement in this matter, the statement read. For a brand so closely associated with his personal identity, even that degree of detachment felt like a signal. The risk isn't just legal, it's reputational. Anyone tied too closely to the case, especially if future charges or evidence become public, could be swept into the same narrative. And in the entertainment industry, where relationships are everything, that risk can mean career death. Which brings us back to his legal team. Lawyers stepping away quietly, colleagues falling back, publicists withholding comment, all signs of a structure under strain. And while Diddy himself may still project confidence, his defense is no longer moving with the precision it once had. For decades, he curated loyalty through charisma, fear, money, or vision, depending on who you asked. But today, loyalty isn't being tested. It's being measured by absence. Because when silence replaces statements and distance replaces defense, one truth becomes hard to ignore. Sometimes the people closest to you leave not because they've lost faith in you, but because they know what's coming. In high-profile federal cases, silence is rarely neutral. It's a signal, a strategy, a shield, or sometimes a surrender. And right now, Diddy Combs' silence, along with that of his shrinking legal and PR apparatus, is drawing more attention than any press release ever could. This isn't just about one lawyer stepping back. It's about a pattern that legal experts have seen before, one where silence begins to replace spin, and private deals are made while the public narrative stalls. Over the past several months, Diddy has become the subject of multiple civil lawsuits, some of which allege years of manipulation, coercion, and abuse. Cassie Ventura's complaint, though quickly settled, opened a floodgate. In the weeks that followed, other individuals came forward, each painting a portrait of a man who, for decades, allegedly used power and fear as tools of control. Diddy has the allegations, but the claims keep coming. Beyond civil courtrooms, federal attention has turned to his orbit. Multiple reports confirm that the Department of Homeland Security executed coordinated raids on two of his homes earlier this year. While no charges have been filed to date, the fact that Homeland Security is involved points to something much bigger than tabloid scandal. It suggests ongoing investigations possibly tied to human trafficking, electronic communications, or financial misconduct. In that kind of environment, silence is strategic, and departures, especially of legal counsel, are rarely accidental. One former federal prosecutor put it this way: when a client is facing overlapping civil and federal issues, everything becomes a potential liability. If you're not 100% clear on the client's exposure, staying on the case could cost you more than just a win. It could cost your license. That risk is amplified by what's being reported about the nature of evidence involved. Sources say authorities recovered extensive digital records, messages, emails, hard drives. Some reports even mention long-hidden video footage and travel data linked to Diddy's inner circle. If accurate, this kind of material doesn't just threaten the public image, can undercut every legal defense ever planned. And in such a complex legal battle, timing is everything. If a lawyer steps away now, it could mean they're trying to avoid being pulled into future subpoenas. It could also mean that plea discussions or quiet settlements are being weighed behind the scenes. Legal fallout, after all, doesn't always happen in court. Sometimes, it begins when those tasked with defending a client realize they're not being told everything. There's also reputational calculus at play. High-profile attorneys depend on trust, media trust, judicial trust, peer trust. If the case against a client like Diddy appears likely to escalate, staying involved could damage the attorney's credibility far beyond this courtroom. The risk, in that sense, isn't just legal, it's legacy. And that's where the real danger lies for Diddy. Because when people start to walk away, not accusers, not journalists, but lawyers, it suggests they no longer believe the full story is defensible. Or worse, that they were never told the whole story to begin with. At this level, silence is never just silence. It's either hiding strategy or hiding truth, and the public increasingly is starting to read between the lines. The court of law hasn't delivered a verdict, but the court of perception, that trial is all ready. Diddy maintains his innocence. He has pleaded not guilty to every charge. His remaining attorneys are preparing a defense rooted in consent, personal freedom, and a challenge to what they claim is a racially biased interpretation of outdated law. They say the accusations are exaggerated or weaponized by people chasing headlines or money. The government sees something different, a system, a method, an operation that crossed legal and moral lines. They say they have recordings, witnesses, digital trails. They claim this isn't about regret, it's about control. Can he get a fair trial? Can the legal process cut through years of celebrity, scandal, and speculation? We're about to find out. Because the trial isn't coming. It's already here. Before you click away, think about this. When power protects itself with silence, who protects the truth? If you've been watching the walls close in and wondering who's next to walk away, you're not alone. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe Diddy's team is falling apart for a reason? Or is this just the pressure of fame at its breaking point? Your voice matters here. We read every word. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't just gossip. These are patterns, these are legacies, and these are lives that were shaped, silenced, or destroyed behind the scenes. We're not here to cancel anyone, we're here to confront the truth, one layer at a time. So if you believe in digging deeper, if you believe in connecting the dots others are too afraid to name, then hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications. Because this platform isn't just for headlines, it's for those who refuse to look away. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What do you believe is really going on behind these closed doors?